Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Devon Evans. I am a military veteran turned barber, and truthfully, like this is my first podcast, and I'm just trying it out. So, here's a few things. My name is Devon Evans. I am a barber, and I recently decided. I won't say recently. Um, I'm opening a barber school. Actually, I've already opened the school, and this is my journey through the school. Throughout this podcast, I want to discuss not only my life, but I also want to discuss some of the other things that have gone on and that have happened to me in the barbering world. I'm sure at some point I'll give my backstory and everything like that. But right now, I'm just going for it. I'm just winging it. Hopefully we'll figure out what this is at some point. But anyways, all right. So here we go, guys. I'm starting a barber school. I've been a barber for going on 5 years now, professional barber. I started cutting hair when I was 13. Always treated it like a side hustle. It was something on the side. I didn't really pursue it as a career until I think I was 28, 29, something like that. I was like, man, there's a huge opportunity here. I'm gonna go ahead and try it. This this thing happened, and you know, I don't know, I don't know. I've always wanted to help people, um, and give people and help people walk through a journey. Um, and the journey, it can be difficult, and so I quietly walked through my barber journey. I started an apprenticeship to become a well. Take that back. When I got out of the military, I went to cosmetology school. I didn't graduate from cosmetology school, so I'm not a cosmetologist. But I went for a couple months, and then I moved back to Virginia, where I am now. When I moved back to Virginia, um, I looked for barber schools, things like that. I didn't have them around. I said, well, I need to get a job. So I got a job, and I worked at a local military school. And, you know, barbering has always kind of been my thing, has always kind of been my passion. So because it's always kind of been my thing, I always kind of end up doing it, right? For people. I've always, for a long time, I've cut family. And, for even longer time, for a long time, I've cut family. And um, working at the military school, I ended up cutting there, and then I took work at a juvenile detention center, and I ended up cutting hair there. And to be honest with you, while I was cutting hair at the juvenile center, is kind of where it clicked. Um, so I was cutting hair at the juvenile center, and all the time I was cutting hair, like nobody really respected what we as barbers do. There were some people that did, but a lot of people were just kind of like, "Why are you doing this?" I had one guy who was like, "How does he get to do this on the clock?" Like, whatever. I I had a skill. I fulfilled a need. That's how I got to do it on the clock. If you ever listen to this podcast, if you ever hear it, that's how I got to do it on the clock. I brought a skill that no one else had, and that's how I was able to do it. It's neither here nor there. Anyways, so again, I was I was in this environment. I was working, and I looked around one day, and at that point, I think I had spent $1,100 on equipment and various things that I had and owned, and all of those sort of things. $1,100 is a lot, and I had put myself personally, through the ringer. Honestly, I had put myself through the ringer. I had told myself prior to that, when I was working at the juvenile center, when I was working at the military school, I met my wife. We got married. I wasn't making enough money to support a marriage. So what I did was I got a second job, and the second job was working at the juvenile center. And back then I was listening to Gary Vee, and Gary Vee said, if you live like most people won't for 18 months, you will live like most people never will for the rest of your life. So, what I do, the closest thing I could do was I worked 2 full-time jobs. Now, let me tell you about what my schedule was. And I understand I'm all over the place. Listen, we're just trying to figure this out. We're trying to get it together. Give me a couple episodes, we'll get a rhythm. But I worked 2 full-time jobs. Now, I worked at the military school. I worked from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. I would leave the military school at 5 a.m., drive to the juvenile center, which was about a 20, 30-minute drive to the juvenile center. Once I got to the juvenile center, then I would work at the juvenile center from 6 a.m. I'd take a little nap in the car. I worked from 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Yeah. That was I did that for 18 months. And now the way it kind of worked out is my schedule was my schedule at the juvenile center rotated. So I would do 2 days on, 2 days off, and then every other weekend. So it would rotate. Anybody that has ever done shift work like that, you know what I'm talking about. So it kind of rotated. So truthfully, I would get I would only sleep for an extended period of time for 8 hours or more, 1 day every 2 weeks. Because, and I don't remember the schedule I had when I worked at the school, but the schedule I had at the school, I pretty much worked every weekend. Well, I did work every weekend. That's neither here nor there. So, I did it for 18 months, and I'll tell you the truth. After the first year, I can remember sitting there, and between my wife, myself, and the 2 jobs I was working, we had made 6 figures that year. And let me tell you what we didn't do that year. I didn't take any vacations. I didn't do anything. I just worked. I worked and 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 I worked. I just worked. And what I remember about that year, when I got to the end of the year and it was tax time and all of these things started to come out, the W-2s started to come out and everything like that. I remember sitting there and crying. I was crying because I had done all of this work. I had taken care of things with my family. I had done all of these things. And I can remember sitting there crying because I had nothing to show for it. Nothing. I had absolutely nothing to show for it. And during that time that I was doing that, and mind you, this is before this before I had really gone. I was still cutting family's hair, but I wasn't doing everybody else. I wasn't cutting everybody else's hair. So this was before all that. So during that time, um, my wife and I had been studying T-shirts. So was it during that time? Maybe a little bit after. No, I'm getting ahead of myself. Getting ahead of myself. I apologize. Um, Before I met my wife, I had started doing T-shirts as a business for a company and as a company, and I was trying to create my own brand, the Designated Marksman clothing brand, yada yada yada, whatever. So I was trying to do that. That's what I was really trying to do that, and so I did it. I was trying to do it, and it wasn't working. I was getting no traction. I wasn't doing anything. Um, so again, I worked 18 months on 18 on the day of the 18th month, the day that made it 18 months. That day, I quit the job and I sat down and I went to the juvenile center and I just worked at one job. Partially because um, I had no time and I spent so much time at work that my body started to fail. It was hard for me to walk. It was a lot of just crazy stuff. So, the last 6 months of that 18-month cycle was hell. Oh, it was hell. My God, it was hell. It was so hard for me to do it. But I said 18 months, I'll live like most people never will. 18 months, 18 months, 18 months. Got to 18 months, and one of the things that I thought from the whole, listening to Gary V, and he had um, he had some good. There was a good point, but what I didn't understand when he was talking about that is that you have to do adequate work. You have to do adequate work. You have to do work that propels you forward. Because if you're just in the rat race and you're just running in this circle and you have nothing going on, you can work. There's plenty of people that work multiple jobs. Plenty of people that work multiple jobs. And to quote from the EYL podcast, Earn Your Leisure podcast. I heard them say this one time during the same period of time. They said, I don't know anybody that has two jobs that's wealthy. And those kind of things put me in shock, and I thought about it. So when I left the juvenile center, um, we stopped, and I opened the um, I opened what did we open? Oh, when I left the juvenile center, I picked back up with the T-shirts, and instead of doing my own brand, I decided that we would just sell to other people. Sell our T-shirt making service to other people, and that's what we did. And it worked for a little bit, but it wasn't consistent, and I didn't really understand what I was doing, and da 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 da. And it everything kind of went in. We were in this mall. It was a failing mall, which is a lot for other places. We had some dirt cheap rent, but I was still working a full daytime job. I had switched what I was doing from working with the kids to doing maintenance. So I had a 5 day a week schedule, and so I was working from 9 to 5, and then I would go to the t-shirts, the t-shirt. What I called it was a t-shirt factory. I would go to the t-shirt factory from 5 to 9 because the mall closed at 9. If I had a job, we might end up staying until 10, but I was really working from about 5 to 9. Uh, Terrible, very inconsistent business for me. Very inconsistent business for me. We would have, you know, a $2,000 sales week one week, and it might be another month before we get anything. And because I was trying to be affordable to the smaller time players and the the one ofs type people, because I was trying to be affordable to them, most of the time I did a job, I lost money on the job. One of shirt deals, I lost money every single time. Um, Actually, our first major job was for an AAU basketball team, and we tried to put it in a price range that would be affordable, and we lost over $1,000 on that deal. Lost over $1,000. This is after. Let me say this. This is after I worked the 18 months. I worked the 18 months thinking that at the end of these 18 months, it's gonna be great. Lies. I just make it to the end. My body's failing. Just make it to the end, and things will be great. Absolute lies. Absolutely freaking lies. Hey, you know, it is what it is. So, we went into we were doing a t-shirt brand, and I was still kind of cutting hair on the side occasionally, here and there. Um, then the we had to move location, so we moved from the mall to the office park, and we got to the office park. Business kind of picked up a little bit again, but it still wasn't great. So we came back, and I really just started focusing on my job that was paying me money, because I didn't understand how to market. I was running ads, wasn't getting any real feedback. Nothing was really happening with any of that type of stuff. Running Facebook ads, by the way. Nothing was really happening with any of that kind of stuff. Whatever. Right? So as we continue and we're moving along, um, eventually I fall out of love with a t-shirt company. It just sits, and we eventually close it down. Well, COVID happens. That takes the air out of our wings. Takes the air out of our wings from the big ticket sales that we were getting from schools and stuff like that. So COVID happens. The landlord was real nice. He gave us an opportunity to stay and work it out and figure things out. Didn't really work out that well. We ended up shutting the business down. Now, about the time that we ended up, before we officially shut the business down and COVID hit, yeah, I'm telling this story all over the place. So I promise you I'll get better at this. I promise you I'll tell this story again. Hopefully I can tell it in a more chronological order, because if you're tracking this, you're all over the place. Um, so here's where it comes. So I started the t-shirt business in like 2015. Well, no, we're gonna skip over that. We're all over the place. Um, 2019, I decide I'm gonna grow my hair. And also during the 2019 period, the juvenile center, because now I'm just working at the juvenile center. 2007, 2017 and 18, I worked. That was my 18-month cycle. I started working at the juvenile center in January of that. In January of 2017, I got married to my wife in June of 2017. I worked all the way up, and I worked both jobs all the way up until I got married to my wife in July of 2017. Oh, yeah, no. I quit working at the military school in um, in June of 2018. When I quit working at the military school, I decided to grow my hair. It was something I had never done before. But I decided to grow my hair. And somewhere during that process of me doing that, the juvenile center asked me about cutting hair. So one weekend I come in, I cut the kids' hair. They're like, "Oh man, you did a really good job," so on and so forth. So I continue, um, I continue doing that. I'm doing it on the clock. I'm I'm actually getting paid to cut hair, not legally at the time, but I was getting paid to cut hair. It was cool to me. So neither here nor there. So we decide to go. That goes on for a period of time, and like I said, I told you the story about the guy just disrespecting me. So I got mad, and so one day I had grown my hair out long enough, and I came to this barbershop, and this barbershop in town, and I got my hair braided. The girl I went to school with, she was a little older than me. She was doing hair, she braided my hair, yada yada yada, so on and so forth. It was great. I have a rule for myself. Usually, once my hair gets long, I don't really cut my own hair. So that's how I started really going to the barbershop. My granddad had suggested it because when I can't cut his hair, he was going to the shop, so on and so forth. So that goes on. She braids my hair a couple times, and um, finally, in late June of 2019, um, I was like, you know what? I'm tired of people disrespecting me as if I haven't put the time in to learn this trade. And so what I said was, I said, you know what? I'm gonna get my license. I'm gonna finish my license because I had started an apprenticeship in 2015, but it was not a good environment, and it just wasn't a good. It wasn't a learning environment. Like people weren't the guy who I was apprenticing with wasn't trying to coach me. Like he wasn't doing anything. So I was like, you know what? That's fine. I left it, and that's how I started my whole. I met my wife after I left the shop, and I left my first apprenticeship and everything like that. So, anyways, so we get to July or June of 2019, and I'm like, all right, this is what I want to do. So I go sit down and talk to my wife, and this is on the tail end of shutting down the t-shirt shop, and well, we had kind of dialed back the t-shirt shop. We hadn't shut it down yet, but we really weren't working it. It was just kind of sitting there being a tax write-off, kind of sort of. We really weren't working it that much. We was getting one-off orders occasionally. Um, so my wife looks at me when I said something to her about being a barber, and she says to me, she says, "Okay," she says, "but I'm gonna tell you this: if you decide to do this barbering thing and you quit in the mid and you don't finish it," she said, "I'm gonna punch you in the face." And listen, guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like my wife is not that type of person, so for her to say that to me, I really felt like she really, really meant it. And I took it personally because she's not violent. Like we've never, yelled at each other. Like with the first time, kind of a funny story. The first time me and my wife had an argument, we didn't even like. We had to be like, did we just like we just have an argument? Because it was that calm. Like nobody raised their voice. Nobody did anything. We had a conversation. Anyways, so when she said this to me, I'm like, what? You gonna punch me in my face? I laughed it off, but inside I took it so serious. Um, so after we had the conversation, she gave me the okay. I was like, you know what? All right, cool. So I had been going to a local barbershop since I grew my hair out. That was around the corner from my house. I went over there. It was a Monday morning. We had a conversation Sunday evening actually. It was a Monday morning. I go over there and might have been a Tuesday. No, I think it was a Tuesday. Either way, I go over there to see the barber and ask the barber that had been cutting my hair to ask him about whether he'd be willing to do an apprenticeship. Um, everything like that. So I go see him. He wasn't there. So I ride all over the county, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I go see my old barber that I went to in the next city over when I was younger. I go see him, and he was like, I come in, and he's like, hey, I get ready to go to lunch, yada yada yada, because I wanted to warm up to the conversation. I just didn't want to be like, hey, I ain't seen you in years. You want to give me an apprenticeship? I didn't want to do that. So I was like, let me go ahead and I needed to get my haircut anyway. So I was like, let me go ahead and get a haircut. I'll ask him about the apprenticeship thing. So I go into the shop later on. Like, it reminds you, like I said, I rode all over town. I go into the shop later on, and I'm sitting there. And when I walk in the shop, I walk into the shop. I look over, and the barber that had been cutting my hair was sitting there waiting to get his haircut. And I was like, okay. So I asked my old barber. I said, hey, would you be willing to do an apprenticeship? And word for word, he says to me, I'm not taking no apprentices right now, or I'm not looking to do no apprenticeships, but he might. Points to my old barber. Barber says, yeah. Um, and we go on, and I go over to the next day. I go over talk to him. We talk and everything like that. I get all the paperwork sorted out. But we talk. He gives me a test. I cut one dude's hairs, everything like that, and the rest is history. The rest is history. And I think for right now, we had about almost 28 minutes. I think we had a good stopping point. Um, so yeah, man. Tomorrow we'll talk about uh, why I almost quit. I was almost willing to get punched in the face. We'll talk more about the story, but I was almost willing to get punched in the face because I didn't think I could do it. So, hey, if you're with me this far, I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe. I don't really have a name yet. By the time you might get to this, we'll have a name. But as of right now, there's no name. And we'll figure one out. This is Devon, founder of the Band of Barbers Academy. And, yeah, we'll see you guys later. All right now.